Hello, welcome. I am Mistie Layne, best-selling author, international speaker, and your host of the Dare to Share with Mistie Layne show. I'm excited to have you here tonight. We have an awesome guest lined up for you. You guys, any of you out there suffering around grief? Have you lost some loved ones? Do you kind of feel sometimes like there's just this dark cloud over your head that no matter what you do, you can't get ahead in life, and there's just one traumatic event after another after another? Well, if any of that applies to you, you're in for a treat tonight because we have a special guest that has lived through so much death around her life that she actually feared being alive, at the same time feared dying. It was kind of a weird twist for her. And we're going to learn all the techniques she used and what she did to climb her way out of that fear and how she lives her life joyfully today. So first, I'm going to do a couple of things. I want to ask you to go ahead and share this out with all your family and friends. You just never know who might need to hear a message that Miss Julie has to say, or something that I might say during the show that could help spark some interest in someone, to motivate them to get up, pull themselves up, or even just to force them to look at themselves in the mirror. The next thing I want to do is ask for you to go to my Facebook page and join the private group. It's called #BeThatOne. I'm really excited about this group. The whole premise of this movement is to encourage people to step up and be brave enough, be courageous and bold enough to share their authentic truth, just to be transparent. We all have life. We all live through life. All of us have ups and downs, ebbs and flows. Oftentimes we find ourselves trying to compete. My story's worse than yours. Mine's worse than yours. There is no competition, you guys, because your pain is your pain and it's true to you. My pain is true to me. You can't equate that from one person to the next. But what we can do with that pain is we can share our experiences. We can share the adversity we went through and how we were able to survive it. Because here we all are standing on the other side of it. So we're survivors now. We're actually authorities of what we went through. Imagine that. You are an authority now of the crap you live through. Isn't that something? Isn't that a neat little twist? So what Be That One does is it encourages you to step up and share that adversity in honesty, truthfully, so that we can all learn from each other. We can become educated. We can become aware. And with that, we can judge less and mentor more. I do believe transparency is a game changer in the world. I think it's going to help with teen suicide. I think abortion rates are going to go down. I think it will just open up a gamut of positivity and openness and freedom. So that's what that group's all about. I really ask that you join that group and share that out. Invite other friends to join the group as well. And then if you want to be a guest, the reason I started Dare to Share with Mistie Layne was to have a platform for those people that decided to do that. That if you decide you want to be courageous enough to step up and be that one, now you have a platform to do it where there's no judgment. It's a judgment-free zone. So if you want to be a guest and you think that you may be ready to share your story, then just please email the word guest in the subject line to Mistie Layne at mistielayne.com. I would love to have you on the show. We can talk ahead of time. You don't need to be nervous or scared. It's just a conversation, guys. We're all human. We all live through it. So no need to worry about that. Okay, let's check in on the people that are here supporting us. Here we have, hey, Mikey, love you so much, man. We have Mr. Robert Brooker, my faithful Canadian friend. He's here every show. We have Joseph. Hello, Joseph. Welcome to the show. Hi, Helene. I love you, honey. Thank you so much for dropping in tonight. I appreciate you being here. All right, you guys, leave your comments if you don't mind. Let us know where you're watching from. I'd love to see where you're from. If you have any questions for our guest, as with every show, you are free to write them in the comments, and we will absolutely get them answered by Miss Julie. Before I bring her on, I do want to share one quick little thing. I think it's kind of cute. So let me bring this up real quick and give you a quick little introduction to who she is and what she's about.
Hi, I'm Julianne Meyer, and I'd love for you to consider the possibility of finding joy in your everyday life. What if I told you that not only is it possible, but it's not hard to achieve, and you can completely reinvent yourself using what you already have, your mind and body.
Awesome.
I swear I'm not talking crazy pie in the sky stuff or even about changes that are hard to make. I've personally experienced multiple traumas, and because of that, I've had plenty of reasons to consider myself a victim. And it was exactly that kind of thinking that led me to a drinking problem. But I did decide to get sober, and while my life did get better, I was still struggling with everyday happiness, let alone joy. Ironically, it took me losing my partner of over a decade very suddenly to truly understand that there will always be an excuse to put off happiness, but we don't have unlimited time. And what I've discovered is that no matter what your story is, it's possible to have real joy right now. And I thought if I could figure out how to find joy, no matter what the circumstances are around me, then anybody can. But not a lot of people actually believe it's possible. So that's when I decided to go out and find 21 experts and organize this free event called the Live with Joy Summit. How to use your mind and body to reinvent yourself and turn life's challenges into play.
All right. That is so awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Now we're going to bring her on, Miss Julie Ann Meyer. Hi, Julie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to Dare to Share. It's such an honor to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
I had to play that clip because it just shows you're just such a fun, kind of feisty personality. You're full of happy. I can just see the joy. You can hear it in your voice. So that's awesome. Awesome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll start out every show, Miss Julie, with your time to shine. I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to get out of the way, and I'm going to let you just talk about your biggest accomplishments. We're not going to go into your story. I just wanted little highlights about things you're most proud of in life. And then because we all know it's not all cupcakes and unicorns, that to get to those levels, we have to go through some stuff. So then we're going to kind of backtrack and get to that. But here's your couple of minutes to shine. So have at it.
Hi, I'm Julianne, as you know, and I would say that, I've done a lot of really cool things and I've had a lot of really amazing experience. Like I decided to move to Canada for no reason to go to school there. I moved to Italy. I went there and I was in an art show. But the things that I'm most proud of aren't things. They're just the fact that I was willing to look at myself and grow as a person and be able to change my life into a life of service and helping other people. I went from only thinking about myself to now I give back all the time, at least daily. If it's not financial, it's time. It could be even a simple smile. And to me, that is the thing that I am the most proud of, because I went from living such a big life to a really small life, like super small. And then now it's big again because I get to go out and help people achieve their dreams. And I love, 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 love to be the mirror of their greatness, because nobody seems to know how great they are. And then they need people like us to point it out. So that is my biggest accomplishment.
That's awesome. That's actually beautiful. Thank you so much. And how fun to just move to Canada because you want to, or just to move to Italy because you can. I mean, that's pretty cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to get to all that, but let's start out by giving the viewers just a little bit of a backstory, because you and I did get to talk briefly. I know that you've had a lot of trauma around you. A lot of people that were close to you have died, and we're going to get to that. But I think where I'd like to start is, you told me your mom and stepdad were both alcoholics. So growing up, you kind of saw that. But something really traumatic happened to you when you were 13. And I would like for you to just kind of tell the viewers, and let's start right there. What happened when you were 13 that kind of traumatized you?
Oh, yeah. Talk about traumatizing. Of all the traumas, this is the only one I actually admit is being a trauma. My mom had cancer, and she always told me that she wasn't going to die, and I believed her. And then all of a sudden, one day she ended up in the hospital, and they said maybe they put her under, and they said, maybe she has 3 months left, and she ended up dying that day. And fortunately or unfortunately, I was literally there. She was in my arms when she passed away. And I don't know that, like, now that I look back on it, I don't know that it was the best thing, but it was the only thing that I thought could make it real for me, was to actually watch it happen. And I don't recommend it. I don't care what age you are. And even though she'd been sick off and on for most of my life, it was such a shock. It's still shocking, and it's been over 20 something years. And it was such a mind altering, life altering, soul altering experience. And I just, it took me a long time to move forward, but it affected me, I would say, on a very strong bases up until very recently. And I was able to let go of a lot more stuff that had to, surround that.
Right. But at 13, I mean, here you are, you're just a young girl. I mean, you 13-year-olds and neither moms around in their lives.
Yeah.
And I know that you weren't real close to your dad at that time. I know you're really close to him now, as you told me, but what did you do? Who did you turn to when you started dating, when you went to prom? I mean, I'm asking because, a lot of us out there, especially in our community, because I'm part of Chemo Buddies for Life, this is a reality. This is a reality. So who did you
It is a reality. By then, my dad's always meant a lot to me, but I was really mad at him for living. And then that's the thing that people forget, because my mom said she wasn't going to. And it's not that I didn't love my dad, because I absolutely adored him the entire time, but I was so mad at him for living. So people don't ever talk about that. Thanks, Mikey. Anyway, but I didn't even realize that I was missing out on the mom thing, because my boyfriend, his mom was getting her eyebrows waxed. And I said, well, why would you do that? Now I'm thinking, well, of course. And it makes perfect sense to me, but I literally had no idea. So I just would, watch my friends. I would magazines, just sort of practice makeup and things like that on my own. And I did go to my dad for a lot of stuff, actually. I really did, but it took me a while to get over it. And he was so patient with me. I wish that everybody had somebody like that when they were going through something so hard. And my stepmom was an amazing resource for me as well. And she was amazing because she didn't try to take in my mom's spot. She was
that's
very gracious. Yeah. She never tried to take that spot. She always just was more than happy to be my stepmom and a supporter of me. And yeah, but I mean, I didn't even know what I was missing until now. And now I crave that.
Right. So, okay. So you're 13, that's death one. So let's move forward. I know there's several events that happened. So let's kind of start unfolding that and tell me what happened next.
Well, there was a bunch of other traumas that didn't have anything to do with death, but the next big one was my uncle, and that was my mom's little brother, and she raised him. And he ended up dying on her birthday 3 years later. And that one I was still so emotionally not available that I didn't even go to like his memorial and his services or anything like that. And my Auntie Chris, who's a big part of my life still, she just said, you know what, that's okay. She didn't even, there's a lot of people that don't get it. And they want you to, like my grandparents didn't get it. They were so mad at me about stuff. Like I didn't keep in touch with them, yet they never called me. And it's the weirdest thing ever. But that was a big loss, because that was another connection to her as well. And he was my closest uncle. So that was a big one. And it just,
going away too. Wow.
Yeah. And on her birthday, I mean,
oh, I can identify with that. My, my backstory, I had a cocaine addiction, and I killed someone in a car wreck on September 18th. And then fast forward years later, my grandbaby was born on September 18th with a complete, like a brain injury, which left her blind, deaf, just a gamut of issues. And she's passed away this past January. But I mean, when those dates line up, it's so hard. It's like, okay, what's the message here? Because there's no way you think it can be a coincidence, right?
And I really felt like it wasn't, because his injuries, he had some issues with drugs and alcohol too, but he actually ended up falling off a roof. And he was, in a coma for quite a while too, which was interesting. But then it's like he chose to die on that day. And it was the weirdest thing. And it still gives me the creeps a little bit, but it's like you said, do you celebrate? Do you mourn? I mean,
he let go.
It's just the cycle of life, I guess. But when there are people you care and love, it doesn't seem that easy.
Right. So what happened after that? I think you mentioned a brother. I mean, I know there's several people on the list here. Let's roll through it.
Oh, yeah. Well, fast forward a few years. I lost a lot of peripheral people. And when I say that, I mean friends that weren't like my best friends or, just people. And about 6 years ago, and this was deep into my addiction, my brother ended up dying. And it was so sad because the last thing I said to him was, I'm not going to watch you kill yourself. And he died less than a week later. And he was a huge drug and alcohol person as well. And, he had some other health issues related to that. And that's how he ended up dying. And, he left a family with 3 kids that that one gave me an excuse to drink at that point. That one definitely gave me an excuse. But that one it was hard because, he was 9 years older than me, but he was always my big brother James. And, I remember my first day at kindergarten, he went and picked me up he made sure I got on the right bus. He came from junior high, walked all the way to the grade school to make sure I got on the right bus so that I could get to, where I needed to go. And then the last thing I say to him is, I'm not going to watch you kill yourself. And then he died. So that's so tough. I mean, both of it's just, I don't regret saying it. I just wish it wasn't the last thing I said.
I bet you have a lot of trust issues. Not that you don't trust people, but to trust the bond that you make. Because I see this cycle where all these people you get close to are being taken away from your life because they're dying.
Yeah.
And then I think you have a couple of more that are even really close to your heart, right? That passed away.
Yeah. There's a couple of big ones, and, I've lost, like I said, countless friends. I mean, it literally got to the point where my dad was afraid when I called that I'd be telling him about somebody else dying. But the one that really just rocked my universe was Jerry when he died. And Jerry was the reason that the one that I was talking about in the video, and kind of one of the catalysts for me literally changing my life after I chose to get sober. And, he was with me through the worst of my drinking, and he was my rock. And next to my mom passing away, that was the hardest loss that I've experienced, because I'm the last person. Yeah, I'm the last person that he spoke to before he died. And he was such a good person. And like, out of the two of us, who deserved to live, it wasn't me at that point. He'd always been such an amazing soul and just the most kind-hearted person. And fortunately, I'm still close with most of his family, but that was just one of the hardest things. I was driving down the highway, and his sister-in-law called me to tell me, and it was just out of nowhere. He just ended up having an aneurysm.
For no reason.
Yeah. That was tough. Sorry. Still.
Okay, you take your time. It is tough. It's challenging. And I know what you mean about the feeling guilty part. Like you said, at that time, you were drinking at that time, or you had already gotten sober?
I had gotten sober, and it was because of him that I had gotten sober.
Right.
He was the catalyst. Because at that time I wasn't really enough in my own mind. Like you mentioned before, I didn't really want to live, but I also didn't want to die. And, my life was very, very, very small, and he just finally had enough. And that was the glass of water in the face that got me to be like, okay, it's time. It's time for me to change my life. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think I'd be alive, honestly, because my body was shutting down. I could have cared less. I mean, when you're not sober, you make bad choices. You make, I could have easily gotten in a car and killed myself or somebody else. I could have easily walked out in front of traffic. I could have easily, not even being aware, or just my body was literally shutting down. So,
well, I totally understand what you're saying about that. When I killed someone in a car wreck, she was an innocent bystander standing in her yard. And if I hadn't have been out there smoking crack, doing the wrong things at the wrong time in the wrong place with the wrong people, she wouldn't be dead. So for a long time, I questioned, why am I here? Why do I And there's a lot of guilt that comes with the one that's left behind. When you're the one that lives, it's hard. It's hard, and especially in my case when it's my fault. I caused it. But we all have value, and what I've learned is that we get through it. And once we've survived it, there's a reason that we were the survivor of it. And I think it's finding your purpose, finding out why you survived it, and then using it. I always say, I think what sets us apart as human beings is what we do on the other side of adversity. Either we sit stuck in it, or we get up and we help people with it. So
that is so well said.
And that's what Be That One is. You are going to be that one to get up and set yourself apart by helping someone else's pain, right? I want you all to type hashtag Be That One in the comments, so Julie knows that we support her and we thank her so much for being that one. Type hashtag Be That One for me, please. All right, Miss Julie. So let's keep going because there's more. There's more.
There's a lot more.
That's not enough. There's more death around you, and I just, man, you should be a grief counselor at this point.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, well, there was another significant other that passed away after Jerry, and he was the next relationship that I was in, and he ended up passing away suddenly. And, he had his own demons too. But I was still surprised. And, talk about, even though it was hard. It was hard because I loved him so much, but he was not making the best choices for himself. And it's really hard to watch somebody going down that path and not being able to stop them because they have to want it for themselves. And, it was like after that, I didn't want to be in a relationship. It took me, almost 4 years before I went and started dating again.
I can only imagine if you feel like everybody you date dies. I could only imagine. I would have a hard time with that. That's
the one that I always get compared to is Keanu Reeves, because everybody talks about how everybody around him passes away, and it's like, I'm wondering, is it me? Because I know it's not, but it's like the common denominator. I'm afraid to get close to people because it feels like they end up leaving in some way. If it's not, actually passing away, then it's some, dramatic something. And it's tough. And then it's like my friend Jake, and he was best friends with the last guy that passed away. So he ended up passing away as well from his addiction. And that one just rocked my world. And, I worked in addiction recovery, so I was around it a lot. But even for me, I've only touched on a few of the people that ended up passing away, but there are some things that I've definitely learned to, work through it. So, I don't regret it now because I can help other people.
Right. And we're going to get to that part of it. That's going to be on the other side. But
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not to make light of it because it's not funny by any means, but I do want to ask this question. So when you would finally start dating again, and I'm sure at some point in their relationship they would hear this story, were they scared to be with you? Were they thinking you were doing it, or were they, did that ever come up in a relationship where you had people bail on you because they thought, well, I'm not going to be the next one?
I never got to that point. I never got to that point with anybody where I told them about it. But my boyfriend now, this is something that I was so closed off. I would never let anybody in. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, you know what? It's time for me to start living. I lived and Jerry didn't. And for me to not actually honor the life that I've been given and I still have is a disservice to him and his memory and what he did for me. And that's really, really what got me to try again. And now I met someone, and we're gonna get married at some point, and I trust him. I actually believe he's gonna live, which I know
he knows your story, right? You said
he knows. On our first date, I opened up about it. Wow. It was like, okay, it's just it was the right, yeah, it was okay. But the funny thing is I would tell clients about it and they were just looking at me.
Yeah.
Are you a Black Widow?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely
laugh about it. We laugh about it, but
Yeah.
Julie, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain there. I know you said when you were in New York, you were scared to live. You were scared to die. You felt abandoned. You were alone in this huge city in New York, but yet you felt so isolated and alone because everyone that you got close to would leave. They would be taken from you. I know that this is the point in your story where your dad jumped in and got into your life, and he offered to send you to a rehab in California. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things that worked out. And I'm so glad that he was so willing to help me because in my mind, I didn't deserve it, and he just wanted his only child left to live. And that's understandable. And so I said, I need help. And he said, well, we'll pay for you to go to rehab because I didn't have insurance. And so that, if you don't know how much that is, that's a lot of money. It's more than you can imagine. And so I did the legwork, drunk, of course. And I ended up talking to basically what's considered a body broker. Like they'll just try and get you into wherever so they can get money off of you. But I found a rehab and I came out literally, I think it was the next day. I don't remember because I was drunk, but it could have been 2 days later. But it was crazy because Jerry didn't even know I was going. And I was so drunk, I didn't remember. And my parents, this was a beautiful thing. They paid for me to have a sober companion fly me to California because they didn't think I would get on the plane. And I wouldn't have because I forgot. So it's not that I didn't want help. It was that I was that far gone. I couldn't help myself. And so, yeah, I came out to California. I was only going to stay here for 30 days and then I was going to go back to my life in New York and, go about my business as it was and only be sober this time and everything was going to be perfect. And, all those crazy thoughts that we have when we're not in our right mind. Right.
And we talked about this a little bit last night because I've been in and out of rehabs a whole bunch of times. Sometimes I went because I really desired to go. Sometimes I went because I needed to for my probation officer. Sometimes I went because I thought it would get my parents off my back or my kids or my husband at the time, just to quit nagging me, It doesn't work for everybody, but it absolutely will never work if you're not there for you. So you are so blessed, Julie, that the very first time you went, it was for the right reason. It was for you. And then you're blessed that it worked for you. So congratulations on that. That is so awesome. You're just living proof to people that a 30-day program can turn your life around if you're in it for the right reasons. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And so you never left California. You've been out there ever since.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, let me back up a little bit. I'm going to make an analogy because this is a show. That's what we do. When I was in rehab, I had to give my life story in order to graduate. And I would hear these stories of these women. It was an all women's rehab. They would get up there and talk about how they were raped by their uncles. Their moms were prostituting them out. They had to work to support their mom's crack ahead. I mean, it was just all these things. And I'm sitting there thinking, holy crap, I can't get it. What the hell am I going to say? I grew up in a big brick house with a swimming pool. I was a spoiled, rotten brat. I just made bad choices. What the hell was I going to say? But the thing was, you had to write your life story. And I kept sitting down. Nothing would come out. Nothing. And my counselor kept saying, just keep doing it. Keep doing it. Well, finally, I think it was like the third or fourth night, things finally started to flow. And when they did, it was like, holy shit. I didn't have the perfect little life I thought I did. I had suppressed all the bad memories. I had suppressed the things in my life that weren't perfect, that I was causing that toxicity. So when you were in rehab, did you have to address some of those pain points in your life? And did they help you with some of the grief as far as being able to fill that void, that hole that you felt inside, that scared alone, Julie? Did they help you with that?
That's an interesting question. The thing that was the most prevalent and the thing that was keeping me from becoming sober and staying sober was the shame and the guilt that I felt for all the choices that I made while I was drinking. And I did some really crappy stuff, things that, people look at me now and they're like, you what?
No way. Yeah, because you don't look
No
the part.
way. Yeah. And, but yeah, I did so many awful things. So the thing that actually made me feel like, okay, I could do this and this one was the game changer for me, is they sat us all in a circle and had one person stand in the middle, and the person in the middle had to say something that they did in their addiction. And then everybody else who did that same thing had to get up and find another seat. And whoever was left had to say something that they did in their addiction. So you really realize that you weren't alone, first of all. And then also people did stuff that you might think was unforgivable or whatever. I mean, because, back then I was still super judgmental because of how I felt about myself. But it really showed me that we all have stories. We all have our cross to bear, as they say. And it did open me up. But 30 days was definitely just that was like, I call it the AED paddles, just a shock back to life. Yeah, it was definitely foundational, and it definitely, I don't know that I don't think I would have gotten sober if I hadn't done that. Because it really, it reset me in a way that, staying in my own environment and, in my own thoughts so much, it really taught me, though, that I don't have to believe everything that I think. Not everything is true just because I think it. And I just, I need to make amends for the things that I've done. And there is such thing as living amends. So, for me to worry about, like the survivor's guilt, as they call it, I try and make my life worthy of being alive. And that way other people, that I want to be proud of me are, even if they're not here anymore. And, you, like you said, you do have to do it for yourself. You absolutely do. Because if you don't, you're going to go back because, it's just not enough to do it for somebody else. But I will say this, and this is something that worked for me that other people don't necessarily know, is sometimes because my self-esteem was so low and it took a while for it to build back up, I would do it for other people for that day, just to get me through the day, because I'm like, okay, I don't want to let my dad down. He spent all this money. I'm not going to die on him too.
Yeah.
And then, I always came back to me, but those moments when I was weak and I didn't care enough about me, I was able to pull through because I thought about my reasons why outside of me. So, and it got me going.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also a lot of pressure. I try to, it's not for everybody. I think you have to find what works for you, because then when I did let them down, it put so much more failure on top of me and so much more like guilt, because as a crack addict, oftentimes than not, I let people down. Often more times than not, I didn't make it through the day sober. So, I think it's a balance, and we have to find what works for us. Okay, Julie, I'm going to ask you to really think about a moment in your life, maybe your darkest moment, maybe your rock bottom, but I want you to tap into your emotions, and I want you to get real vulnerable with our audience here today. And I want you to find something that was just a pivotal moment, something really dark that maybe you've been ashamed to even admit to yourself before. And then I want to talk about how it changed your life, or how, looking back now, you just now realize that maybe it did play a part in helping you. And I'm going to jump to a commercial break to thank our sponsors. Then we come back, I'm going to have you share that. Then we're going to talk about how you've been able to do all these wonderful things that you're doing today and staying sober. Okay.
Perfect.
Thinking about that. We'll be right back. Let's hear a word from our sponsors real quick. Today's show is sponsored by Simple Changes from Wanda Reynolds. Make a simple change today for a healthier tomorrow with products like Simply Satisfy, which aids in gut digestion and curbs your appetite. Mental wellness is directly related to gut health, so keep a happy gut with Simply Satisfy. Then there's Simply Soothe. It helps relax your sore muscles, and it supports your overall joint health. Simply Start is made from 100% organic hemp oil. It promotes your calmness, supports sleep, and maintains healthy joints. Contact Wanda Reynolds today through Facebook Messenger or at scdso.com/live life wonderfully. Health provides simple solutions to whole body health. To get and stay healthy, we offer Somaderm HGH Gel. Would you like to sleep like a baby and wake up rested? Do you want to feel maximum benefits from physical exercise? Do you want to burn through that afternoon slump with energy to last well into the night? Well, you can. And you may also experience 25 other whole body improvements with the gel. It's effective, safe, FDA registered, and very affordable. Diane has immuno boosters and keto support products too. Contact Diane Chasik at lifesmilehealth.com or text lifestyle to 64600 today. Awesome. Okay, please go and check out our sponsors and help support them as they support this platform to be able to let people come on and share in transparency. And thank you again to our sponsors. Okay, Miss Julie, it's time for you to come on out and talk with us and share a vulnerable moment with the audience, and then so that we can learn from it and we can grow with you and you can show us how you were able to grow with that.
Well, this is a moment, and it's not something I've ever actually shared before. So there was literally a moment when I decided to change my life, and I wasn't sure how yet. This isn't when I agreed to go to rehab, but I was living on the East Coast, as I mentioned, and I was sitting in our TV room on the futon. Okay. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a futon, but you got to understand, I went from like wonderful high life to my whole entire life consisted of being on this futon. I was afraid to leave it. And I had to, all I did was sit there and watch TV and drink. And I had to go to the bathroom. I literally could not stand up because I was so weak. And I tried crawling to the bathroom, and I probably got 2 feet, maybe 3, and I couldn't make it. And I'm sitting at the front door, and my dog comes over to me, and she's just looking at me like, don't do this anymore. And I just remember thinking, I have to go to the bathroom and I can't even get there. I'm killing myself. And I was so weak. I literally I couldn't go because I couldn't even crawl. That's how bad I was. And it took me a good hour to make it back to the futon. We're talking 2 to 3 feet. And it took me an hour to get back because I was so weak. I couldn't even move my own body. And that was definitely by far the lowest moment. By far.
That's self-sabotage. It's like, why do we do those things to ourselves?
Yeah.
We got to love ourselves. We just have to find something in us to love. I'm so sorry that you've gone through that, but I'm also at the same time so happy that you had that moment, Julie, because as you said, that moment is probably what made you go ahead and agree to go to the rehab your dad was offering you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was. And it was, like I said, I've never shared that because I've been so ashamed. I mean, that was literally my most bottom of moments. And I've done some shameful things, but that not being able to go to the bathroom because you can't get there, even by crawling, or, army crawl, anything, I couldn't make it. So it was, it was one of those times. Yeah, it totally, it was a turning point.
It was. And I'm glad that you had it. I want you guys to just say, thank you for sharing in the comments to Julie, please, because that was tough for her. Like she said, she's never shared that. It was one of those moments in her life that opened her own eyes. And maybe you're going through something too, and you've got shameful moments. And maybe it's time that we open our eyes. Maybe it's time that we can see other people have gone through it too, and that they're at a beautiful, happy place now. They are living with joy. So I just want you to type in the comments, please, for me, everyone that's watching, please type thank you, Julie, so she knows that you're supporting her and that we're proud of her for sharing and being here vulnerable with us today. Okay, so now let's talk about after rehab, you're building your life back up. So we have just about 15 minutes. I want to start talking about how you've been able to stay sober Do you go to AA? Do you journal? What we're going to talk about what you do and tips to someone that may be thinking about going to rehab but hasn't found the courage to do it. So let's address those two things real quick.
Okay, so I'll just say this. I was completely 100% anti-AA. And one of the counselors in rehab, he said, I didn't go to AA. I got sober through meditation and yoga. He said, but you need to go. And because he said that to me, I took it on. So I went for quite a long time. I don't typically go to meetings anymore just because I'm in a different place. But I do recommend it in the beginning. It's nice to be around people who understand you, don't judge you, and want to hold you up. And when, even now, like I can go back whenever, and there's going to be perfect strangers who are willing to help me, completely willing to help me. Yeah. But the way that I stay sober now is I always give back. Because you can't keep something, if you're not willing to give it away. So for me, I work with people who are trying to take their life to the next level after they got sober. But what I do is, like the Live with Joy Summit, for example, I just want people to understand that no matter what's going on, especially like with COVID and things like that, you can always find a reason to not be happy. You can always find a reason. But if you want to look and just find those little moments of joy, then, like the birds singing when you wake up, or maybe your fireplace is working, or maybe, whatever it may be for you. For me, if I'm down, I'll play some music, But yes, like you mentioned, I journal. I'm a huge journaler. I'm also gratitude journal. That's a huge one for me. And whenever I start to feel negative, I start thinking about what I'm grateful for, because, what you focus on expands. It is one of the laws of the universe. So I'm definitely a spiritual person. So I try to keep my connection with my higher power strong. So, I attend spiritual services. I do meditation. But mostly it's about getting outside of myself, because I still have all the tendencies and the thoughts of being an alcoholic. Like I was interviewing somebody earlier today, and we were talking about how I was in this house and there's all these gift cards on there, and he's been sober 6 years. And he says, so the woman who owned the place walks in and says, hey, what you doing? He goes, I was just thinking about stealing all these gift cards. He wasn't going to, but, the thought crossed his mind because he's an addict. He hasn't used in forever, but
what were the gift cards for? What were the gift cards?
Like REI and stuff like that.
Why were there a bunch of gift cards?
Because they were getting married. And so they were yeah. So they were collecting, wedding presents, and those just happened to be there. But, those thoughts, those crazy thoughts for me have never gone away. And I've just had to become at peace with them. And just realize I don't have to believe anything that I think, and I don't have to act on every single impulse that I have.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not so easy.
Well,
but I also watch what I eat, sleep well, exercise. If you can't do those things, then it's harder to make healthy choices no matter what.
It's not that we can't do them. Sometimes we just don't. It's a self-sabotage thing. But I have a moment of transparency I'd like to share as well. I've been clean and sober since 2007. I've never looked back and touched it, not once. But I have really hard days too. And September 18th has always been challenging for me. And after Eliana was born, and I blame myself for it because she was born on the same date, September 18th, that it got even doubly hard for me. This year, September 18th just passed, and it was our first year without Eliana. She passed away in January. She would have been 5. I had a rough day. I knew I was going to have a rough day, so I purposely planned. It fell on a Friday-Saturday combination. I purposely planned to work out of town so that I could be busy. I knew I would be busy working with patients. I had to keep a straight face. But I'm not going to lie, that was the first time in years. The hospital I was working at is in Northwest Houston. It's not in a good area. I walked out the door at the end of my day, and there was an actual prostitute standing on the corner tweaking, which you could tell she was high on meth or some kind of upper, just tweaking. And it brought back so many memories and feelings inside of me of when I was that girl on the corner, tricking and tweaking. And for an instant, the devil was like, I can take your pain away. I bet she knows exactly where to go get crack for you. She's just right there. All you got to do is ask her. She's probably even got some in her purse. For just a quick second. And I had to just take a breath and say, what are you doing? And I just had to just sort of re-ground myself and just remember all the wonderful things I've done and remind myself that one hit, if I were to go do it, would take me right back into that game again. And so it's a constant, even 13 years out, it is a constant battle. It might not be every day, but it's never going to fully go away, ever. And so thank you for sharing your moments of vulnerability with us, because I think it's important if people are watching that have overcome some type of addiction to not get too comfortable in it. And like you said, when we give back to others is what keeps us strong, I think, because we have people looking up to us. We have people we're mentoring. So if we're not going to stay sober for us in that moment, like you said earlier, stay sober for the 17-year-old that's looking up to you to get to where you are, right? So
exactly.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so let's talk about, so you and Mikey had partnered up and you did this live with joy. I always mess that up. I'm so sorry.
Live.
I know, because live and live look the same, right? Okay. So y'all did this thing together. Whoops, wrong thing. Hang on, back up. And I just messed that all up. I'm sorry, guys. Let me redo that. I want you to talk while I'm pulling this up. Just tell us a little bit about that and what prompted you to do it. And hopefully Mikey's still on here. I don't know if he is, but tell us a little bit about that, how that came to be.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I was trusting my higher power too. So COVID happened and I needed to pivot my business to online. And I thought, okay, I don't do online, and let me think about something that I can do, because whenever I start to get me, I want to do something for other people. So I decided I was going to take the premise of that you can find joy no matter what's going on around you. And so I went and I was going to go find 21 experts, as I mentioned in the video, so that everybody could, see different perspectives and find different ways to just deal with moments. Because like you said, you got to find your way. It's different for everyone. Mm-hmm. So, I actually called Mikey or messengered him, because he and I sort of touched base at the World's Greatest Motivators, which was another reason why I started doing this whole thing in the first place. And then he had a similar idea and platform. So we decided to partner up. And Mikey, is a big thinker and a big doer. So we made it double. So we did 42 instead of 21. Plus, we've already filmed, I can't even tell you how many other ones, for the next series. So, we just wanted people to know that they don't have to stick where they are. And, it's not always going to be easy, but you can always find something in those moments. And the thing that I want to mention, though, about grief is, and people don't think about, it's not linear. It's up and it's down. And I don't know about you, but there's times when I'd feel guilty about feeling good. Yeah. And then there's, and then wonder why I wasn't feeling good enough. So I always tell people, just ride the wave. When it's great, enjoy it. And when it's not, just know it's not going to last. And you'll get through it. So yeah, that's kind of what we wanted to do. We wanted to make it big and, appeal to a whole group of people that wouldn't have access to these kinds of speakers and motivators and influencers.
I love what Robert said. I continue to feed my addiction to joy. Robert, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I love that.
And I want to say too, around grief, is that I think it's important that we allow ourselves time and space to feel those emotions, because oftentimes, life is busy, and it's not that it's not impactful, but out of fear of confronting that pain, we just do the funeral's over, and we just pick back up with our life and keep going. And we never address that pain inside. And it just kind of gets stuffed down under little Debbie cakes or weed or alcohol or sex or gambling or whatever it is, right? So I think it's important to stress here that we have to give ourselves that space and that time to feel those emotions, to have those bad days, to have those good days, like you said earlier, and let and work through the process. Now, me, because of, I do the Right to Ignite Women's Empowerment retreats. I'm all about writing. Writing is what saved my life in prison. It saved me. And so I'm all about using writing. So I encourage anyone that's going through pain to journal it. Journal it. And then one day you'll have that to give back to someone else and help them through theirs. So there's another little tip, around grief is to journal it.
Yeah,
right.
That's definitely a huge one. That's definitely helped me.
Yep, I'm just reading some of these comments. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your support on the show as well. Okay, so we're just getting really close to our time. I want you to give some tips to someone that might be, maybe they've admitted to themselves they're an alcoholic or an addict. Maybe they haven't. Maybe other people around them are telling them they are, but they don't know that they are. Maybe they've thought about rehab, but they don't think it's for them. So for that person out there, what advice can you give them about rehab and the reality of their addiction?
Well, I will say this because I actually worked in rehab after the fact for years. And, I've heard a lot of horror stories and a lot of things. And the one that I went to was not good. But it worked for me because I got every ounce and every juice and every gem out of it. And I figured I could do anything for 30 days. And I was going to give it my all, 100%. No matter where you go, just try it. Just try it. And then you'll find somebody that you trust. Follow their direction. Even if you don't feel like doing it, just do it. Whatever it is, just follow direction. If you want to do something that's negative, do the opposite action. That's something that, they teach, and it's saved my butt countless times. But it's just, you get out of it what you put in or what you're willing to give of yourself. So my recommendation is just go for it. And if you have, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to go, by the way, a lot of people don't know that. There's so many people out there that do not get to go. And if you're going to take up a bed from somebody who really wants to go, you better honor that space, because there's people that can't afford to go. There's people that just can't get there for whatever reason.
Right.
But if you want to love yourself, that's the best first step that you can make, is changing how you see it, everything.
And I was actually going to mention that because not everyone can afford rehab. I know that there are indigent beds, which are the free, there's a few free beds usually in a program. But I can tell you, based on my own personal experience, when I was at the time where I was ready, it was for me, I had to have it. You have that must have mentality. I would call and there'd be no spots. And I'd be like, but I have to go. And they're like, there was no spots. Or my mom would call or my husband would call. When your people around you call for you, they're not going to take you serious. It has to be you beating down the door every day, sleeping on the steps, waiting for that bed to open, for them to say, okay, this person is serious and they deserve this bed. One time, and this is the craziest thing, but this is how it really was. This is the honest truth. One time I called to get into rehab, and I got there, and I had sobered up a few days before I went. And when they did my drug panel, the crack was no longer in my system and I was clean, and they would not let me stay. And I said, what do you mean I can't stay? I've been battling this. I've managed to get 5 days, waiting to get here. I had to go, this is crazy. I literally had to go out, go get high, and come back so that my blood screen would show cocaine in my system so I could keep that bed. Now, I don't know if you change that, but there's a lot of people, and I think it's in that way because there's a lot of people out there that just don't have a place to go. And those you get fed, you get sheltered. I mean, so they have to make sure you truly have that addiction. But I mean, in my case, I think that was absolutely crazy that I had to go
that
get
happened to me. Yeah, that happened to me actually once. I mean, I probably wasn't ready to go then anyway, so it ended up working out. But but I just thought that was the craziest thing. I'm like, I'm finally ready for help, and there's nobody there to help me.
Nobody there.
Yeah. I mean, people don't understand. Like, it's
so don't give
honor
up.
and a privilege.
And I like Julie's telling you guys, it's an honor, it's a privilege. Don't give up. You make the calls yourself. It has to be for you and no one else. But the good news is if you get in there and you do the work and you take it serious and you just absorb every bit of that knowledge of proven tips and techniques that do work, then you can live a life of joy, just like Julie is. And you can give back to other people. And you guys, that's the best feeling in the world. It's something I recently had to learn. My mentor is Jason Cisneros, and he would always teach us about you have to give to get. You have to give. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I never understood it until I started doing it in service, and the feeling, the freedom, the reward in it is just, it's astronomical. And if you don't believe me, then I just dare you to go out and try it yourself. Go out there, and I tell you, the hardest thing to do, and I challenge you, and I dare you on the viewership now to do this. I want you to go out there tomorrow and do something for somebody, and don't tell a single soul you did it. Don't tell anyone. Let it be between you and God. And that is hard to do. That's hard to do because we're looking for that satisfaction or that reward or that pat on the back or that attaboy. But when you truly give from your heart, from a place of service, it's a great feeling. And I challenge you to try that. I challenge you to do it, and then drop in our group hashtag be that one, how it felt, and if you were able to do it, and not tell anybody about it.
I love that. It is a challenge because you're excited about it too, and it feels so good.
Yeah. Helene says, thank you both for being here and sharing your life. Absolutely, Helene, and thank you for all that you do in the Chemo Buddies group too. Okay, so let's see. You think Jason used to swear like a sailor? You should hear me talking to Henry, my inner voice. Robert cracks me up. He's so funny. Okay, he says helping others gives me fuel for living. That's right. It's about giving back. Okay, well, our time is ended. There's another show that comes on after mine. So unfortunately, even though I could keep going on, we have to end it. So thank you, Julie. There is a gift you're offering. If after the show's over, if you'll go into the comments and put that YouTube link, it's the link to
the page so you can see all the interviews.
I'm going to say Live with Joy. Live with Joy Summit again. Yeah, it's a link to her YouTube place that you can watch all 21 of those amazing interviews. So except that
more. 42. There's 42.
Oh, 42. I'm sorry. I thought you said 21. I was supposed to be one of those. And for whatever reason, life didn't work for us, but there's a reason for it. It's okay. Next time around. Okay, you guys. So we're going to have to get off of here, but check out. Julie's going to drop that link for you in the comments. And I encourage you to go over and check that link out and support Julie and share those out with your friends. All right, Julie, thank you so much for being here. It was an honor having you. Thank you for your transparency. I really appreciate you stepping up to be that one today.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Well, that was Miss Julie Ann Meyer. You can reach her through social media. Julie Ann Meyer. Like I said, go to that YouTube link she's going to drop for you and check out that summit. Thank you all for being here. If you know someone that's struggling around any kind of addiction or even struggling with grief, unresolved grief that they haven't made the time and space to work through, I encourage you to please share this out to them and let them listen. Julie shared with a lot of transparency. She's in a great, happy place in her life. You can see it in her face. You can hear it in her voice. You can feel it from her spirit. And she's definitely someone that's been through a lot of it. So connect them and let Julie help them out. Let Julie get her blessings back by honoring them, by helping pull them up some. That's how it works in life. All right, you guys, I hate to cut it off, but we've got to run. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday night at 6 p.m. Central on the Dare to Share with Mistie Layne show. Don't forget, if you want to be a guest, all you need to do is type the word guest to Mistie Layne at mistielayne.com, and I will get you booked as soon as possible. All right, you guys, I love you so much. Mistie Layne out. Bye.